In this bonus content, we discuss the first 3 episodes of Ted Lasso Season 3 and how they apply to teaching and learning from the perspective of the first 5 themes we've already covered on the Teaching Like Ted Lasso podcast: play, curiosity, teamwork, vulnerability, and discourse. Welcome, I'm Dave.
I'm John.
And this is Teaching Like Ted Lasso. Warning, we expect that you have watched Ted Lasso, at least through Season 2. There will be spoilers ahead and scenes that don't make sense if you don't have some familiarity with the show. When we first started, we really did think that Season 3 would start, right, by the time we got started.
For like 1 or 2 episodes in, we were thinking.
Right. Yeah. So that we could bring in some of those ideas from Season 3 also into it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're still both committed to this idea of thinking in terms of themes, not episode by episode. There are lots of them out there. I'm not going to pass any judgment one way or another. There are lots of them out there. But we felt like
it's good at Ted Lasso podcast. You're not passing judgments.
Yes, yeah. Listen to all of them and make your own. Be your own curiosity. I was going to say make your own judgment.
Be your own curiosity. So Season 3 is finally
here. So Season 3 is finally here, and we were thinking that we might at least talk about those themes we've already had episodes about: play, curiosity, teamwork, vulnerability, and discourse, and where we're seeing those things already in Season 3.
Right.
So what are some of the ones that you've noticed around play, for instance?
That's interesting. Kind of the importance, the symbolic nature of play, I think, comes up in that first episode. Just thinking about the Lego stadium. Ted's son has been visiting him, and Ted's apartment is full of toys and things like that. And Ted coming out of that mode is definitely a big part of kind of his emotional setting.
Yeah, and Henry even says at one point, right, that he's looking forward to get back to his toys.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that that's an important thing for us to remember when we're in our teaching, is that outside of our classroom, people have fun.
Right.
Outside of our classroom, they play. And to what extent can we bring that into our classroom?
Definitely.
That first episode, I also think about the press room where Ted does the
how crazy am I?
How crazy am I? How dumb am I? I see that again from a teaching perspective is I need to not take myself so seriously, right? I need to be able to, I think about, again, my early career where everything was so serious. I couldn't let kids get away with stuff. It was disrespectful if they did, and everybody was miserable, myself included. One of the things that I've tried to remind myself is to put myself in perspective, to be humble, right? Humble is being right-sized. And so being right-sized in the experience of my students as it relates to what's going on in their life, as it relates to the other classes they're taking.
Which is, Ted is astounding at in that press conference, right? So things are super negative, and many different responses would have led to much more negativity.
Right. It's a snowball effect. And so that sort of diffused it. And then this idea of where it sort of creates relationship. So Keely's workplace is not a fun place to work.
No.
But she brings in a friend. She talks about having a picnic. They're thinking about having mimosas. Maybe they are or aren't. At least her friend is.
Yeah.
And in the episode just last night,
which I'm halfway through.
I won't give it a spoil. I think this happens early on where they have the whole Julie Andrews conversation, right? And again, it's just playful banter.
Yeah.
How about curiosity? Where do you see curiosity in these first 3 episodes?
It's interesting, right? So Ted Lasso's approach has transformed that team, right? So when something's going on with somebody, they want to know. And it's not about gossip. right? So I'm thinking about Roy and Keeley.
Yeah, they're curious about what happened, which again is a nice way to think about in our classrooms. How do we develop that curiosity so that people are curious about one another, curious about one another's ways of thinking? I was also thinking it's probably a little bit more bigger, but this whole idea of Ted asking the question, why am I still here?
Self-curiosity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wonder how is that what the whole season's going to be about? Him trying to figure that out?
Which is scary in an education podcast to be, he asked the question, is it okay to quit? That's, I think, something teachers have to deal with on a almost daily basis in some circumstances.
Right. Well, I mean, finding purpose. You have to find purpose in your work. I mean, who's the guy who wrote The Man's Search for Meaning? Frankl?
Viktor Frankl?
Viktor Frankl, yeah. I mean, he was in a concentration camp, and he was curious about people who were making it and people who weren't. And the people who were making it had found some purpose.
Right.
Purpose in the daily life, purpose longer. His purpose was writing this book, Man's Search for Meaning. I think that's a great point. How do we, as teachers, find purpose in our work? And if we don't, then you're right. Maybe we need to find something else to do.
Yeah.
We're not encouraging that, especially of our majors or our alumni, because they're fantastic.
Right.
But,
So what about teamwork?
Well, I think the scene down in the sewer definitely is this idea of we are a team, let's work together. The piece in episode 2 where it's halftime and they're trying to figure out how to beat Chelsea, and Jamie contributes some ideas. I'll be interested to see how it goes forward now that they have Zava and how that interacts with a team. I mean, I think about it as a classroom teacher when a new student might come in, and how do you help them to feel like they fit in? How do they, all of those things.
Thank goodness teachers never have to worry about when there's like one outsized personality that comes into the room and dominates all the conversation.
Are you talking about me?
No.
Oh. Okay. Because I can be like that. I get it. What about you? Where are you seeing teamwork?
You brought it up about Keeley's, I think, place of employment, right? So that's that lack of a team, and how much she picked up from what happens with Richmond, right? That she knows this is something she wants to happen, right? I mean, some of that is naturally who she is,
right?
But she's very conscious about what am I going to do to make that happen here.
Yeah, I've heard it described from the opening sequence where Ted sits down and all the seats, or not all the seats, but some of the seats turn red, connected, and that this is the idea that he's having an impact on the people that are around him. And Keeley is a good example of that, of trying to develop a team and trying to do these things to connect with folks.
Right. And if you're just, looking at the numbers, maybe it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, Babs. You're talking about Babs, aren't you?
Except, so Keeley's curious.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Going back to that. That's a great point. And I think that also brings into vulnerability. That part of the first episode where Rebecca comes and visits Keeley, and Keeley just starts sobbing, right? And it's clear that she's not doing well, at least in terms of the environment that she's in.
Well, yeah, but like her willingness to express herself, that is what is going to lead to it being okay. She has people she can talk to. She is talking to those people. She's honest with them about how she's feeling and what's going on.
And again, it's not always negative. There are some positive ones. I can't share it with you because you haven't seen it yet. Hopefully John's seen it by now, but if he hasn't, I'm not even sure he listens to the podcast. So the scene that I was talking about was where Roy and Jamie talk about the fact that Jamie's no longer the best player on the pitch, and but he wants to be, and Roy offers to help. And again, so it's not necessarily bad stuff. It's just someone who wants to improve and ask for help. Well, not necessarily even ask for help, right? But the other person is able to interpret that help.
Yeah.
And we can't not talk about Jamie trying to have empathy with Roy when he finds out that he and Keeley broke up.
Yes.
That whole exchange is just hilarious.
Jamie, in fact, how they're writing Jamie this season is just immaculate so far.
Yeah. So what lessons does that all bring to the classroom?
Like my first thought was, watch and find out. Yeah, it's interesting because for so much of the first, not that tough things don't happen, right? Mm-hmm. But so much of the first 2 seasons, right, there's just this air of positivity. Mm-hmm. But as season 3 starts out, they really have some challenges, right? And I think, how do we respond to those challenges, has to come first from dealing with each other as people, and the curiosity, the teamwork, the vulnerability, right? Knowing that play is an option still, right? Those responses are going to help us get through these darker situations.
Yeah, that's really nice, John. And what that triggers immediately for me is this idea of support system, right? We need to make sure that we develop as teachers a support system. And I know both of us talk to our pre-service teachers and our in-service teachers about that. A lot of discussion sometimes in colleges about social capital, right? Building these relationships that are going to mean something afterwards. I'm really trying to encourage my pre-service teachers to do that, to build relationships with other folks that they can reach out to.
That's excellent.
Yeah. I mean, Ted's reaching out still to Dr. Sharon, Keeley and Rebecca are reaching out together. I think that's an important piece for us to remember. Mm-hmm. So discourse?
Discourse is the main one we haven't talked about.
So where's discourse?
Well, in this show, it's everywhere, right? So it's all about the conversation. Mm-hmm. Some of the things you brought up already, like Roy and Jamie, those conversations are amazing. I was talking to you today about how much I loved the conversation with Jamie coming in to express his concerns, maybe venturing into dialogue versus discourse. But the sewer was, an amazing bit of group discourse. Where do you see it?
The one that keeps coming up for me in my mind is the whole idea that Roy has told the team that they can't talk to Trent Krim, right? And so the first part of it is how uncomfortable now the team is because anytime Trent Krim is around, they've taken that literally and they don't say a word.
Right.
So as Jamie's about ready to tell the strategy that's going to help them, score against Chelsea, Trent Krim walks in and all conversation stops. Right. And as a result, we don't know what are we supposed to do.
Yeah.
Right. And so the importance of having that discourse and what, so in this case, Roy is holding a grudge, a couple decades long grudge against Trent for something that he's written before.
Right.
And because of that, it's interfering with folks' ability to communicate, right? To build on each other's ideas and move toward a solution. They can't talk, they can't make it toward that solution.
Right. One thing that I've been especially aware of this season, I think, is just how good the characterization is. Because Roy Kent is still very much Roy Kent, but he never could have had that conversation with Trent 2 years ago,
right?
2 seasons ago, and he couldn't have never had the two conversations about his relationship with Keeley that he had with people 2 seasons ago,
right?
But he's still himself,
right?
He's learning how to incorporate these things into who he is,
right?
Even if he's crazy for breaking up with Keeley.
Yeah, that just doesn't make any sense. So we'll see about maybe doing this again,
so come into the conversation, right? If
where are you seeing these things?
Response, other themes, are there new themes?
Right.
They have new problems, new things are going to approach.
Yeah, I appreciate you, sport.
Always.
I thought we said we weren't going to do an episode by episode recap.
Yes, but you see, I do this podcast with a guy who asked me every day for 2 weeks. Have you seen the start of episode 3?
Who is this guy?
You recognize him if you saw him.
He sounds terrible.
No, he's great.
Oh, I appreciate that. I appreciate you.